All right, so it looks like we are hearing some rumblings about a potential sequel series to Game of Thrones again, not involving Jon Snow, not this time. Actually, George R. R. Martin recently on his Not a Blog update hinted that he had a conversation about, I imagine, a creative development with Maisie Williams, who was the actress for Arya Stark in Game of Thrones. Now, this really jumps out at a lot of fans because they must speculate that, of course, this means that they are going to look into doing a Game of Thrones sequel series of some sort, centered around Maisie Williams' character, Arya Stark. And I am actually all here for it because why not? I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones, especially the earlier seasons, but I still continued to watch through all the way to the end, to the conclusion of season 8. And even now, to this day, I still go back through and I watch Game of Thrones. I even watch what I consider not great seasons there towards the end. And I still can find things that I enjoy about the show. And once they got away from the source material there in season 5, it really did start to become kind of its own thing that existed in maybe an alternative universe to A Song of Ice and Fire, the books written by George R. R. Martin. And I think that's really the main benefit to doing a sequel compared to what we've gotten with the prequel series. If there's one thing I must say that I do get exhausted by, and I'm guilty of this as well, is making these comparisons from the source material to the show, and that has been really prevalent, especially for myself, with House of the Dragon. There's a lot of things that I can't look past because we have these expectations going in, and when they don't match our expectations, sometimes you can be surprised and it's like, wow, that was done so much better than I had anticipated. But oftentimes we find ourselves disappointed. And, well, it's really nobody's fault except our own because we went into the show or the movie with an expectation. Now, show-only fans seem to have a much better time with House of the Dragon than I did as a book reader. So, there's that. But as somebody who's read the books, I think that there are moments in Game of Thrones, once they got past the source material, where they do make changes, but it gets to a point where I'm like, I have no idea what's going to happen, and there's nothing in the book that I can say, oh, I'm waiting for this plot point, I'm interested to see how they adapt that. No, this is going to be all original material. And sure, I'm like many other people, and I was disappointed with the conclusion of Game of Thrones, but it was kind of its own thing there by the end. And even if it felt like it was kind of hijacking some core ideas from George R. R. Martin, it really wasn't a George R. R. Martin story so much anymore, because there were so many things where you felt like this is not how George R. R. Martin would have written this moment. This is not how he has portrayed these characters in the books. So there's a lot of that. And one of the benefits here, or the main benefit that I am hinting at or alluding to, is that an Arya Stark sequel series will be all original material. So if you have somebody that does respect George R. R. Martin's world that he's created there with A Song of Ice and Fire, with Westeros, with across the Narrow Sea, with Essos, maybe as far east as Asshai, some really interesting things could be explored, and it would be totally fresh. Maybe they take something from like the world building books with the World of Ice and Fire, or if they keep it in Westeros, maybe they explore some things within Fire and Blood. But unlike the prequel series, they don't have to make any comparisons. They don't have to live up to the creative genius that is George R. R. Martin's story or his very loyal and passionate fan base. They can really do their own thing and kind of live off of how Game of Thrones concluded. And not only that, if they're able to expand some of, I don't want to say loose ends, but kind of like that, where where there was a lot of us that were dissatisfied with the conclusion of Game of Thrones. Maybe there's something that they can add to this that maybe adds to that story that feels more complete or fulfilling and expands season 8 beyond what we have so far. Now, I know we had idea of a Jon Snow sequel, and I was actually really looking forward to that because there was a lot of things I wanted to explore. A few things that I thought really jumped out at me was really like what is going on in the North. I'm really interested in the politics of Westeros. I find that more fascinating than a lot of the magical elements, more so than the others or the White Walkers and the dragons. I just think that that is really cool to see how that all plays out because it really does focus on character. And I think some of your best conflicts come from just two characters. And George R. R. Martin and early Game of Thrones offered us a ton of that, especially early on. We got a lot of moments that could be really intense, when you can develop tension without not having to rely on a big set piece or action sequence. I always felt that that was really powerful writing, even in the show Game of Thrones, and of course in the books. So I'm curious to see how they do that. I really didn't mind The Mandalorian's first couple of seasons. I thought that was a really good way of telling a very grounded story in a galaxy far, far away in the Star Wars universe. But starting out there, I've really felt that that had a very grounded approach. It's what I look forward to the most with the Dunk and Egg story. I feel like we are going to just get at the root of what George R. R. Martin likes to write about, which is the human heart in conflict with itself. So Dunk and Egg offers that more intimate type of character on character tension, development, exploration, and I'm all here for it. And I really hope that Dunk and Egg lives up to that hype, or at least the hype that I'm creating for it right now. But as far as a sequel series, what could it be about? I don't know about you, but I really want to at least get a glimpse of what is going on in King's Landing. I do find that fascinating. What does the Seven Kingdoms look like? Or the Six Kingdoms now? I'm not really sure because of the way they left it off. You know, is there tension within the realm? Because you have the North that is declared itself independent of the rest of Westeros, even though the Iron Islands were fighting for their independence as well. And yet, you know, they were never granted that. And it'd be curious to see what's going on there with, you know, Yara Greyjoy or Asha Greyjoy, however you want to look at the character. I'm really fascinated by this. I don't know about you guys, but there are certain characters I'd like to catch up with. Of course, I'd like to see what's going on with Jon beyond the wall. It sounds like we're going to have to wait a while to get any further exploration of that character and the wildlings. What is going on with Sansa at Winterfell, the Queen of the North. Really bizarre for it to end just the way it does, with basically the Starks running all of Westeros. You know, Jon's beyond the wall. Sansa is running the North. You know, takes up more space and size than the other kingdoms combined. And then you have Bran as king. You know, I think that could be really fascinating. Drogon is flying around the world. We have no idea what's going on with him. So there are some things that they could jump onto here to see what's going on. And if Arya is going west of Westeros, it would be really interesting to see her wind up in a place like Asshai. And we could find out so much more. And it's where they could really borrow from the world building books and really dive in there into what the rest of this world looks like outside of not just, you know, Westeros and Essos. And we could really see a bigger scope here. So that's an option that we could look forward to. But I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. I read that blog post from George R. R. Martin, and, you know, seeing that he's sitting down with Maisie Williams and discussing development of another project. I'm fascinated. I have no idea what it could be about. Especially if it's centered around Arya. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comment sections. I don't really script these out. I just kind of had some things that were on my mind about this, and I wanted to share that with you guys, and hopefully you guys can contribute here in the comment section. I look forward to discussing this with you further there.